Guys, this is Lord Chael speaking on behalf of our show sponsor, Established Titles. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords and ladies. They allow you to buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land so you can officially call yourself a lord or a lady. Established Titles is not just about your ego, you also get to do some good. In addition to your new fancy title, Established Titles supports global charities, like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to help with their afforestation efforts. Your title pack gives you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Scotland. And your official certificate proves your title, as well as your unique plot number, where you can see the exact location of your land. Getting the certificate even allows you to officially change your name to Lord or Lady. Put it on your credit cards, your plane tickets, or even your dating profiles. Established Titles is currently having an extended New Year sale just for you guys. And on top of that, you can get an additional 10% off any purchase you make with discount code CHAEL. So click on the link below or go to establishedtitles.com/Chael. Use the promo code CHAEL to save an extra 10% today. Ciryl Gane and Francis Ngannou, guys, this is only days away, and we're going to have to go about this ourselves. We're not going to get a goddamn bit of help from those two. Which makes you wonder why we're sitting over as a community hyping and building and promoting this fight. Why are we doing that? What standing do we have? What participation do we have? Why would we possibly do that when the two guys fighting don't give a goddamn if anybody cares about it anyway? Fair question. But we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do and it's what we do over here. And quite frankly, whether they're smart enough to go out and get it on their own, they still do deserve it. This is a massive fight. If this would have been done just slightly different by both of those parties, the interim champ and the undisputed champ, which has an absolute responsibility and obligation that comes along with it. When you agree to fight for a championship fight, without it ever being stated that you're agreeing, should I grab the belt, I am going to go and run this the right way that a champion should with what's expected of me, which means you're out there, which means you're telling the 5 W's of who, what, when, why, and where to anybody that will ask, and your opportunities for people that are going to ask are more, and you're going to say yes more often than you say no. It is stunning to me what a poor job those two have done to build this fight. Fine. Go about it ourselves, guys. Gives a goddamn about them. They still do deserve something, and there is still something special that's going to happen here, and those two aren't going to take away from our ability to go out and enjoy it, so let's make sure we see it. Now, what is this story missing? You're not reinventing a wheel. Stories have been around from the beginning of time. Before they could even write and they had pens and paper, people had stories. They just verbally told them. So what things do stories have that this one doesn't have? Well, let's start with this. Who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? Let me ask you that question, because it's a little bit more philosophical for when you answer it. And I know that you all do have an answer, and I know what you said. Ciryl's the good guy, Francis is the bad guy. Why? Because I had decided that as well. I had decided Francis was the bad guy, and I had decided that Ciryl is the good guy. But I had to take a step back, and I'm asking myself, so now I'm bringing you in on it, why? Francis has not done anything. Good, bad, or indifferent, he's done nothing. He got asked to go and fight. He said yes. Weight class was already identified. Stakes of world championship already identified. Unified rules, everybody knew it. Venue was picked. Francis had nothing to do with it. Francis said yes. Those are the same thing that Ciryl did. Why is Francis the bad guy? Francis has shown an interest in going out and box. Why is that bad? He didn't do it underhanded. He did it above board. It's the only reason we know about it. Francis didn't have something secretive that he wanted to pull out and upset everybody with. He told everybody. That's the litmus test. Francis passed. Francis did everything right. Francis is talking about going and doing some kind of business with Tyson Fury, but Tyson called Francis out. Ciryl gets some kind of a pass? Why would we give him a pass? We don't know how Ciryl would have acted had Tyson called Ciryl out. But most likely, Ciryl would have acted the same way and said, yes, I would like to go and do that. So these guys are dead even. Why is it we've decided that Francis is the bad guy? We cheer for Francis continually. When you start to hear the Francis story, on a human level with his family, his friends, his geographical location, and how he ended up here, you cannot hear that without a tear coming to your eye. It is something very endearing, and we all loved him for it, but we seem to forgot, and now we put him in the category once again as a bad guy. You don't get to just be a bad guy. You had to do something. And I'm submitting for you, and I'm wide open. What is it that Francis did? Nothing. if I was to go a little further and say, what is it that Francis did that Ciryl did not do, or more importantly, that Ciryl did the opposite of, right? If you got a good guy, bad guy, they had to be confronted with the same situation. The bad guy chose left and the good guy chose right. It has to be that way. That never happened. Why is Francis the bad guy? I think it's tough to know. I don't think Francis did anything wrong by talking about Tyson Fury. I don't think Francis did anything wrong by responding to a public call out by the boxing champion. Francis dug his toes in and said, no, I'm the real champion. I'll even come over to your sport or your rules and do it. We should have supported him. Why didn't we? He's going to represent us. He's going to go take the risk. He's going to do the hard work. He's going to step in there to represent our community. Why did we not get behind him? Because Conor did the exact same thing, but we did get behind him. We did dig in and we did fight back. And it did turn into some good, competitive, fun rivalry of MMA versus boxing, which in truth is the same community, but we make believe that you divide sides, right? It's like going to a wedding. The bride side sits over here, the groom side sits over here. As soon as they walk down the aisle, you're all family, but it's just one of these things that you do anyway, and it comes from a good place, so what in the hell? Let's have a little rivalry. Why didn't we get behind Francis for that? And I do want to come back to this fight, because Ciryl said, I would only encourage Francis to do one thing. Go out there and do your absolute best, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in and I'm going to try my best. I suggest that you do the same. Now, that's something that a good guy would say. So maybe we have succeeded in classifying Ciryl as the good guy. I think perhaps prematurely. I don't think that Ciryl had the same litmus test. I don't think Ciryl was up against the same things contractually. I don't think that Ciryl had the same opportunities. If Tyson Fury came at me, I know that I would come head on. And whether I really had the balls to step in there with him or not, I'm safe, I'm over here, and I would have enjoyed the back and forth in the media. And that's all that Francis did. Ciryl didn't do that, but Ciryl wasn't confronted with the opportunity to do that. So let's just say that Ciryl's the good guy. Let's just say it, because he has done nothing wrong. I still would bring my same arguments and ask you, what is it that Francis did wrong? And I don't think that you're going to have a reasonable response to tell me what he's done, which is quite possibly why these guys have decided to just leave well enough alone. And then you got to get into the intangible parts. Does that training footage mean a goddamn thing? It does to me. I did not think either guy looked like the better fighter in that training footage. I did not see anything that showed a speed or a power or a setup differential between the two. I saw two guys working out, but it did mean something to me, which is I know when you have guys who are feared, Mike Tyson's of the world come to mind. But when you have somebody who is genuinely scary, and Francis is intimidating as hell, and you worked out with him, all of a sudden he's not intimidating anymore. As soon as you feel that power, as soon as you realize he's a regular guy, he sweats too, he's got goals, he's got insecure, as soon as you work out with a guy, when you kind of know him a little bit, some of those fears go away. I think that's an advantage for Ciryl, but I'm splitting hairs over here, and I don't know that it has anything to do with the contest, considering that workout was in 2019. So what is it that we do have to draw a conclusion as to who should be cheered and who should be booed? Who is representing good? Who is representing evil? Who's in the white hat? Who's in the black hat? I don't know. I don't know that we do have enough. I think we want a story to be here. I think because we know in stories one has to be good and one has to be evil, we've elected to put those characters into place, but I don't think that the evidence has been presented in front of us. These guys have blown it. It's over. This fight is in just a minute. Us hardcores can't wait to see. The little old lady in Iowa has no idea it's happening. Those two blew a massive opportunity that will not be presented again. And what comes of it, by the way? If Francis wins, what happens then? I suppose the first thing we would need to know is contractually, where does he stand with the UFC? There has been some guesses by the UFC who openly admitted, we don't have the contract in front of us, but that they guessed that they would have an automatic extension due to something called a championship clause. There's been something revealed on Francis's side that, no, this is our last fight, we're done, and we can go look at a new contract with you or just going over here and boxing. I suppose the first thing we'd have to know is to guess that. But if Francis does win, where does he fall in line with the greats to have ever done it? I think very high. I don't think that Ciryl Gane is necessarily right now the opponent that you need to beat. I think that was the last fight against Stipe. I think backing Jon Jones down just publicly, saying, come on, I'll give you the opportunity, and Jon saying, no, I don't want it, I'm not ready. I think that those are good wins, and when you do combine that with the fact that he fought and defeated Cain Velasquez, champion of yesterday, I think that Francis has damn near done it all. I don't know what kind of pad he gets from Ciryl. My guess is if Francis wins and doesn't come to terms and walks away, Ciryl is going to become the interim champion and stay there for a meaningful period of time, or the new undisputed champion and stay there. So a win over Ciryl, like a fine wine, is going to look better with time. I think that's where Francis is. What does it mean for Ciryl? Because Ciryl has some very beautiful stuff on his side, a big shiny gold belt, the fact that he's never lost a fight, the fact that he's never lost a round, the fact that he's never been taken down. Those things are good, but Ciryl has not been in there with the same level of competition. To say what a great defensive wrestler Ciryl is because he's never once been taken down, but then to go and look at his record and see he's never once been in there with a wrestler, I think puts a little bit of a question mark. So it's an interesting fight, but that's not my job to tell. If Ciryl hears this as a chill, what, you're not going to give me credit if I beat Francis? That was your job, Ciryl. You blew it. You could have been out there tooting your own horn, or you could have been blowing up your opponent. Either way, doesn't make a bit of difference. If you beat a guy that you didn't tell anybody you were fighting, you're not going to get that big of a bounce. And the same thing goes for Francis. I just made a very logical argument for Francis, but what kind of people are walking around in the fight community that are thinking about logical arguments that you'd bring up in front of a jury? Try none. It's a weird thing to do. So if Francis didn't want to put down Ciryl, maybe that's why he didn't want to do these interviews. He could have done the same interviews and boosted him up. That's an old St. Pierre trick. St. Pierre never went to a press conference banging his chest about how good he was. He'd go to the press conference and he'd build the opponent up. Jake Shields, he is the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioner in all of MMA. He would build the opponent. This is the hardest test I've ever had. He would build it up so that once he beat him, that's how St. Pierre took the steam. He never did it ahead of time. He did the interviews. He agreed to do the work. He wouldn't put his opponents down, and he wouldn't build himself up. He would build them up. That's just how he went about it. You could copy St. Pierre, or you could dismiss him, but St. Pierre is the greatest pay-per-view star of all time that's not named Chael Sonnen. So as you look at this fight, look, I know these guys blew it. These guys blew a massive opportunity, but we still have earned something. We have come along the journey. We're going to part with our time and money. We have ever been at the right to sit down and look forward to this fight, even if Francis and Ciryl aren't.